Good evening, good morning, and welcome to the third part of our webinar series, Introduction to Quantum Response Technology. My name is Harald Rauer. I'm the Managing Director of Bruce Copen Laboratories. And I welcome you back. I guess a lot of you have been also joining the first two sessions. And today we're gonna look into the use of the database of the system. So let's just have a brief overview what we're gonna talk about today. I said this is part 3 of our 4 series webinars. And part 4 will be on the 21st of May, so in another 2 weeks time from now. And there we're gonna look at the color tuning, which is a completely integrated but separate module of the Copen Mars 3 or Scope Q system. It's a virtual sound balancing tool, which focuses on work with the chakras. But as I said, we're gonna look at it in more detail in 2 weeks time. So today we're gonna give you an overview over our database, because actually this is the heart of the system. And we're gonna talk about the concept of the rates, because when people talk about merely people talk about frequencies and concepts of Hulda-Clark or the Rife frequencies. But what we actually work with here in the Mars 3 or Scope Q are rates. And I want to explain the difference to you. I think I already did in the very first part of this webinar series, where we were discussing the theory of the whole system. But because I think it's quite important to understand the difference between a rate and a frequency, I'm gonna discuss that in more detail. Then we will see how you can enter your own rates into the database, because that's a big benefit of our system, that you can tailor it to your needs, and you can put in the frequencies, the rates that you need for your everyday work. So we're going to look at that. Then we're going to look how we build templates, because the templates are actually the vehicle to use the rates in a test or in an analysis. We're going to talk about the clipboard, because this is another, I think, quite powerful tool that we have in our system. And then, as always, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please, whenever you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. And I will then read out the questions to everybody and try to answer it as good as possible. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's get an overview over the database of the Scope 8 Scope Q system. The database has its own icon in the Scope Q or Scope software. It's here on the left-hand corner. Click on the database, you will see the database structure. And we have started to give separate numbers to the database, because we kept on working on the database and kept on changing. And to have track of the database, we have put in here a version number of the database on the very top. So you can see this is database version 4.5. And this is the software version 8.6. So we have 2 different versions now. One is the actual software version and one is the database version. And for those of you who might not know this layout of the database, we came out with this a couple of years ago, and we are still in the process of proofreading the English version of this database. It's quite a massive project, and in the middle of that project, we lost all the data. and had to start from scratch. So it's about 60 million items that are in that database. About 62,000 items are in the database, but these items, it's always one rate, say, but as one rate can consist of more than one word, we have a total of 60 million words in that database that needs to be proofread. So that's quite a task. And yeah, but I'm working here with this not 100% proofread version, but yeah. So, and that's also the version we are currently delivering. When you purchase either a Scope 8 upgrade or you purchase a new device, you will get this actual version of the database. So let's have a brief scan through the content of that database. You can see we have here several numbers going from 00 up to 09, then starting with 30, starting with 40, with 50. So these are kind of sort numbers in the database, because normally the database would sort from A to Z. But to prevent that, to have a different kind of organization, we put in these numbers, and each number stands for one category. So we have 00, which is the pre-test. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then it goes on with 01, which is organs. And if I click here on the plus, it opens the content of that category. And you see we have here the brain, we have the cardiovascular system, cell structure, and so forth. And if I click here on the plus again, you can see that the brain category unfolds, and that gives us more subcategories: the terrial ring, brain areas, and so forth, brainstem, brain in general. And every time I click on the plus, it will open this subcategory, and the content of that subcategory becomes visible. And you can see whenever there is a plus in front, the item beyond is a category. And whenever there is no plus, you have actually what we call a rate. So for brain here is a rate. And if I click here on preview on the top, that's this icon here. If I click on preview, I can see the actual value of that rate, and I can see here the description in the that we have put into that rate. I must admit that not to every rate we have a description, because some of the rates are self-explanatory, but to some of the rates we have explanations here in that field that explains what does that rate actually mean. I will talk about the concept of rates after we had this overview over the database, but let's just first go through the content of the database further, and then I will talk about what a rate is and what's the difference between rate and frequency. So next is here O2, that's teeth. We have human teeth, we have teeth in functional circles. If you remember again from the first part of the session, I had a chart that showed that every tooth has actually also an energetic connection to organs, and as we can see here also to elements. So in this category here, you find for every tooth the energetic connections that underline that tooth, and that connection is actually vice versa. So if you have a problem with that tooth, you could have the associated organ could create an issue, and vice versa. If you have problem with the organs, for example, here's this is the orogenital tract, which is related to the tooth 1-1, then you can get a problem with that tooth. So it's a bidirectional relationship. Then we have here dental materials. This is a rather short category, because the problem is with the dental materials that every day new materials come out. So if you want to work with that in depth, we recommend that you actually try to liaise with a dentist or with a technician and get the material from them and actually scan them in. We will discuss that also later, how to actually scan in the actual material. So then we have dental nosodes from Dr. Heck. Dr. Heck is one of our customers. He's a dentist, and he created some special nosodes again for each tooth. Then we have here a whole section, energetic section on the teeth. It's worth exploring that a little bit. You see we have here hormonal imbalance and so forth. So that's quite an interesting category to explore. Next point is O3, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. We have here the classical ear points. We have actually general acupuncture points. We have the retro points of the ear. We have eye acupuncture. We have new and extra points. We have the Ayurvedic pulses. And we have, of course, the actual meridians with all their associated points. Then we have Chinese herbs. We have quite a number of Chinese herbs in here from various pharmacies. And we have the CNS memory points by Professor Barr and electroacupuncture points with all the meridian points from electroacupuncture as according to Dr. Wall. That's the TCM section. Then we have nutrition metabolism. Again, if I open that, I can see all the subcategories. We have, for example, everything here around acidosis. We have organic acids. We have here amino acids, the essential and non-essential. We have here, this is a rate that I've put in because this is also my demo database, and you can see this has some blue, blue, looks like an atom, blue atom in front, which means this is a customer or a custom rate. And the red blue ones here, these are all the system rates. The custom rates can all be changed. The system rates cannot be changed. We have the intermediate catalysts. We have diet and nutrition, which is basically all the food. We have proteins, cereals, dairy products. If you open that, you can see all the various items under these categories. Then we have enzymes, we have fatty acids, we have all the food additives in here, like emulsifiers, stabilizers, sweeteners, and all these kind of chemicals that are added to the food. We have minerals and trace elements here. We have orthomolecular medicine. Again, this is from 2 pharmaceutical companies. And finally, we got all the vitamins in here. Next down is O5 psychology, which is emotions, psychokinesiology. We have some items in here from psychokinesiology according to Dr. Klinghardt. We have some psychosomatic rates here, which have a very short relation. If there's a problem with the legs, you could say this person has a problem with progress, or if there's a problem with the tongue. Of course, it's taste, but not only taste in the sense of tasting the food, but also the taste in general, or the heart here is got something to do with life and so forth. This is psychosomatic. Then we have sabotage programs, something which I think is very important also eventually to do self scans here, because these are beliefs that you eventually gathered before you've even come to this planet, and which could be a burden throughout your life, or make you struggle, or be an obstacle throughout your life. So this is quite an important section, I think. And then we have some systematic rates here for systematic family approaches here. So yeah, that's all in psychology category. Next is therapeutics, which is basically all kind of stuff to treat the patient. We have here, first of all, homeopathy. We have formula remedies. And we have formula, first category is formula remedies according to indications. So if you have, for example, an intoxication, here are some formula remedies, which, or compound remedies, they're also called, which are against intoxication. Here we have the formula remedies by Dr. Copen. We have the miasms here. We have Schüssler salts, or it's called also biochemistry, or Schüssler remedies. We have here the single homeopathic remedies, the constitutional remedies, and which I like very much this section because I'm not so very well trained in homeopathy, is this homeopathic section according to indications again. So if you get somebody suffering from a bronchitis, you have here some remedies you could use for bronchitis. And this plays especially a role when we later talk about the clipboard, because this is quite useful. Put on the clipboard and check out which homeopathic remedy of the tested ones here are best for the particular patient. And here we have got all the homeopathic remedies from A to Z. Yeah, I think it's quite, as I said, self-explanatory. Then we have here various manufacturers. Of course, they are more or less from Germany/Europe, but these are manufacturers of homeopathic remedies. Then here we got various remedies. Aurasoma we got in here. So this all the various Aurasoma essences. And also a very important section here is the flower essences. We have more than 5,000 flower essences in here. Australian bush flower, name it. I think name it, we got it, we could say. Because this is really a very powerful section. We have gemstones. We have, again, here indications where you can find various items that could be a source for that problem. We have medical mushrooms. We have special section here on oncology. We have a special psychic section here again in terms of remedies for psychic issues. I'm losing here always the contact of my mouse. I hope it's not the battery that struggles, but let's hope it will hold throughout the webinar. Then we have here nosodes. This is basically all viruses, bacteria are under this category here. For example, the bug nosodes, I don't know if you're aware of the Mr. or Dr. Bug who did the bug flower remedies, also had some bowel nosodes, which are in here, which is good for testing the intestine or microbiome. Then we have here microbiology, so that's all the bacteria, mushrooms, parasites, that's all under microbiology in nosodes. And those of you who might know Staufen Pharma, they have, it was a pharmaceutical company that has a big repertoire of all various viruses, but they unfortunately closed down the business. And we've got all their remedies in here as a scan. Then we got diseases and symptoms. This is basically a list of various symptoms or diseases. Also very helpful. And then we got here environmental toxins, also a very important section. I think becomes more and more important since more and more of the food, of the air that we take in is polluted. So this is a very, very important section, all under the nosodes. Then we have wisdom teachings, which is basically, you could also say, esoteric stuff that's underneath here. We have plenty of affirmations from, for example, from Louise Hay. This is again affirmations for various indications. So if you get somebody suffering from allergy, you might eventually want to check this affirmation or simply use it as a kind of a treatment command. So if somebody suffers allergy, it's good for him if he says to himself, the world is safe and friendly, I am in peace with life. At least that's what Louise Hay suggests. And there are subconscious affirmations For example, if you've got sleep problems, yeah, you might want to check out which of these affirmations is helpful for your patient or for your client. Then there's the Book of Answers. I've been asked today, where are the rates from the Book of Answers taken from? It's actually a book which is called the Book of Answers. And the way you use these rates is you pose the question that you want to have an answer for in the focus line in the test wizard, and then you can call up the Book of Answers and yeah, check out what the universe has as an answer to that particular question. Then we have cosmic and planetary influences. That is basically cosmic constellations, as well as the planets and the zodiac signs. We have guardian angels. We have what is called the healing secret. Again, that's from a book. And so this is again similar to the Book of Answers. Whenever, yeah, you can see that somebody's not making no progress in his healing, you could eventually get a scan on this category here in order to find out what is the secret behind his diseases or the patient's diseases, and what needs to be resolved in order for the patient to get healthy again. Here is from our Austrian partner, MT Cosmos. They are in the southern part of Austria, and they developed this program here. I mean, it's worth checking out their website because they have also training programs on the Mars 3, which are quite go very much in deep, and that's here one of their one of their system they're teaching, which they kindly gave us to include in our database. And then we have prenatal patterns. Again, that's before your client actually was born, to see whether there had been any issues that have an influence on the actual development of the fetus, or when the person then was a baby, a newborn, that could have been influenced by these prenatal patterns. Then we have spiritual development. Again, this is a bunch of kind of affirmations that might be helpful. We have subtle anatomy. This is also a very important section because this contains all the rates of the chakras, and this is more or less based on the system that has been developed by David Tensley. And he wrote quite a number of books. Most of them are out of print, unfortunately, today. But if you search the internet, you might get eventually hold of some of them. They're all very, very, I can suggest to read them, especially the subtle anatomy of man, because there he describes a complete testing system, how you could work with these rates. There are all the chakras in here. There are various layers of the aura colors. So yeah, that's all got to do with this subtle anatomy as understood by or described by David Tensley. And here finally, this section closes with some luck symbols. And these are again symbols which can be used for protection. And yeah. And then we have here finally section 09, which is various tests. We have here allergies, whole section on various allergies. We have a basic test here, which you could run as a basic scan, and gives you an overview over various parameters. We have the body areas here. We have, which I think is also very important, geopathy, geopathological zones, electrosmog, building biology. So this is all got to do with the place people live in and how healthy is that place. Electrosmog is also here. Geopathological stress, that's all found here under building biology. Again, here are some cell items from one of our customers, um, which he put together as a kind of a testing how the cells are actually working or what do the cells need to be improved. Then we have here dark field microscopy. That's also according to one of our customers, Eckhard Scheller. And it shows just some items that you can observe when you do dark field microscopy. And yeah, just some items that might help you if you are working with dark field microscopy. Element and components are all the chemical elements of the periodical system. We have the intake clearance. We talked about that in the last webinar when we were talking about the testing before the test. And here are all the rates for the intake clearance section. Then we have here Yin Shin Jitsu, that's a Japanese acupressure system where you have various energy locks and you can massage these locks, or like in this case here, you can use them to balance them or broadcast to them. Then we have probably not all the frequencies of Dr. Clark in here, but quite a number of bacteria and molds and so forth from Dr. Clark. And we have here a therapy test, which means you can check out which therapy is best suited to actually treat the patient in his current state. So this is all here rates for human patients, and just go up here to this pre-test. I said before I want to give you an information on that later. The pre-test basically helps you to go through the whole database, and we use the pre-test in one of the templates, and it goes through the whole database down to the first level of subcategories. And the aim of that category is basically to check through the whole database and give you that category that you need to look or need to explore deeper to find the solution or suggestions for the problem of your clients. So from 00 to 009, we have all rates related to human patients or clients. And next is 30. We have all rates for veterinary medicine. So the point is here, if you're in veterinary medicine, then you might want to first run a scan on the human rates, because like, for example, all the organ rates, they are relevant for animals as well as for humans. And so are the bacterial rates and so forth. So you first do the scan of all the human rates, and once that's through, you do the scan through the veterinary section. And we have special veterinary rates for dogs, cats, and horses. And we always have here a section with a pre-test according to the same principle like the pre-test up here. And the veterinary pre-test will actually run through the sections down here. We have a pre-test for dogs, cats, horses, ruminants, parrots, and parakeets. And this actual pre-test will then always give you information on the actual veterinary tests down here that you might need to run through. So for example, here we have then the vet detail test for dogs and cats, and we have a lot of subcategories down here, which will be pointed at by running through the pre-test dog. You can see here it goes to all these various subcategories. So for example, if you get in the test then a result with this 300202 heart and circulatory disease, you will then find these rates in the section here 300202 heart and circulatory diseases. of cats and dogs. So as always, this pre-test actually refers to the main test, and in this case to the veterinary rates we got in here. So this is our veterinary section 30. Then we have an agricultural section. This is a very brief one, but if you have at home a garden or you have a balcony with some flowers, you can use these rates to treat the soil and also the plants. And then we have here a coaching section 50, which I think is quite useful if you want to do analysis of a company or of somebody who's self-employed or got a small, medium-sized company. You can check out by scanning here what are the problems in that company. Is it down to marketing, to finance, and so forth? So you find a bunch of rates here. I think it's a total of 5,000 various rates that are all related to companies. Finally, here we have got here 85 Copen ERS. ERS means Extended Rate System. Why did we put that in there? We have, for example, here all the COVID-19 rates. I want to talk a little bit about the structure of that database. As I said, all these rates here are system rates, and the blue ones are the one that you put in, that are custom rates. And the problem with a database like that is that it does not store the actual item. It always stores only the relation of items that the items in the database have to each other. So every entry in the database has an ID, so have the categories and subcategories. So and the database is structured in a way that it always relates the number of the actual item, so of the ID number of the actual item or of the rate, to the subcategory where it comes under, or subcategories if it's plural, if it's more subcategories, and the main category. So it's quite a complex structure, and that's why it's a bit difficult to later add items to databases, especially if the database had been changed by a user, because the IDs will be automatically added by one every time somebody puts something in. So every time, let's say the ID in the database as we deliver it is, as you can see down here, 62,517 items are in there. So the first rate you put in yourself will gonna have the ID 62,518 and so forth. So, and if you have put in, let's say, 80,000 rates, your ID is at 82,517. And when we come out now with more rates that we want to distribute or to make available to you, the problem is if they have the same ID rate like you have already used in your database, it's going to mess up the database. So that's why we have two very important sections. We have the Copen Extended Rates system. That's where we will put in rates that we want to distribute with you or to you in the future. And we have the own rates section, the 90. You can see there's a number of rates that I've put in here myself, merely when I do demos of the system. And all the rates under the own rates can then also be easily exported and re-imported should we ever come up with a new version of the database. Now we have 4.5, but eventually in 2-3 years time, we will come up with a new database, which will then be eventually version 5. And if you have all your own rates in that category 90, it's quite easy to export these rates and re-import them later. However, the fact that you have all your rates under this one category has no impact on your test, because as we will see later in the templates, you can still assign these rates to other topics. So long story short, whenever you add an own rate, do that always under the category 90 own rates. How to add a rate to the database, we will discuss later during this evening or during this webinar. So I'm going to switch back to my actual, sorry, to my PowerPoint. So we just had an overview over the database, and I would like to talk briefly again about rates, because it's really important that you understand that these are no frequencies. The actual the principles of the rate system has been founded by an American doctor, Albert Abrams. He was living from 1863 until 1924. And funny enough, he studied or made his doctor degree at the University of Heidelberg here in Germany. And he defined what is called the electronic reaction of Abrams, which basically means that disease is an electric phenomenon, not the effect of bacteria or viruses. And he rather saw the electric environment a person is, or the electric environment of the body of the person is the cause of a disease. So you could say that the electric environment in the body lays the foundation for any disease someone might develop. How did he came to that idea? Well, he had a he came to a system where he was palpating the stomach of his patients, and he actually found that there were rather dull or hollow sounds on the abdomen of the person, and he could found that these dull sounding areas of the abdomen correspond to diseases. So for example, if somebody was suffering cancer, he would actually get a dull sound when palpating the abdomen in this area here, while when actually palpating somebody who was suffering from syphilis, he would actually get a dull sound up here in this area. So he finally came out with charts that showed the abdomen of the person and showed the various zones where you could actually diagnose for treatments, for diseases, sorry. And the actual downside of that system was that various zones, for example, cancer and tuberculosis, were laying very close to each other. So it was rather difficult to find a difference between these two quite different diseases. So actually, he was thinking to implement a more detailed kind of diagnosis, and what he found was that this phenomenon only occurred when the patient was standing and facing westward. So he thought it has something to do with the magnetic field of the Earth. And as it's always in science that the foundings in the various aspects of science, like in technology and in medicine, they always go kind of parallel. So as back in the days, the electric current was just discovered, and the relation between magnetic field and electric field was just being researched. He eventually thought, and as you might all know, that there is a relation between the magnetic field and the electric field. If you move, for example, a cable through a magnetic field, a electric current is induced into that cable. And vice versa, if you move a, or if you send some electric current through a cable, a magnetic field will evolve around that cable. So he thought when this effect only occurs when the patient is facing westward, and it has something to do with the magnetic field of the Earth, it might as well be an electric phenomenon. So he was experimenting with connecting the person with a cable. Actually, first thing he tried, because as said, this worked only when the people were standing and facing westwards. So he thought if it's an electromagnetic phenomenon, eventually it could be conducted through a wire. So he tried to lay down the actual patient on a bench and connecting a healthy person just with a wire here to the forehead and with actually a metal plate where the person was standing on, just connected it with the earth basically, or with the earth also where the patient is lying on. So it was more or less an electric circuit that he built up. And what he was finding actually that the pathological zones on the abdomen of the patient who was laying down on the bench were actually transferred to the healthy person. So whenever, for example, Abrams would have diagnosed something here in that area of the patient, and he connects a healthy person to that patient, he will have the same pathological zone on the abdomen of the healthy person. And whenever the connection is cancelled, then this pathological zone would disappear on the abdomen of the healthy person. So that more or less was a proof for him that it is kind of an electric phenomenon. And he experimented further and thought to find a solution for the problem that various zones were in very similar areas. So he thought if it's an electrical phenomenon, I could eventually modulate the electricity that is going through the wire. And what he did is he just put a very, or rather simple electric component in the wire, and that is an electric resistor. A resistor is something to electric currency like your tap is to the water. If your tap at home is completely closed, no water will come out. And if you open the tap, you can regulate how much water is actually coming out of the tube. And the same thing is doing a electrical resistor. If it's fully closed, no electrical currency will come through, and you can actually control the dosage of electrical currents that's running through a wire. So it's quite a simple electrical component. And like, for example, if you remember your stereo system at home, nowadays most people use their mobile phone for listening to music, but back in the days you had the stereo system and you had your volume knob on the stereo system, and that volume knob was also electrical resistor. So, and he came up with just putting some of these resistors in the series here, as you can see. So this was 2 boxes with 3 resistors each, and put in a series. And the beauty of a resistor is that it's actually a physical value, which is measured in ohm. So, and then Abrams found out something rather more interesting. Remember what I just told you, that he was putting down the patient on the bench, connecting a healthy person to perform the test on the abdomen of the healthy person. And he found also he does not necessarily need the patient to be laying down on the bench. It's enough if he has a blood sample of the patient and puts that into a copper well and connects that copper well to his system of resistors, and then connects actually the healthy person with a wire to the system. And then he could actually test on the abdomen which zones are appearing, and so that system diagnose the patient. And what he found is, for example, remember before we said syphilis and cancer was quite close in the zones. Um, he could find out that if he was, for example, setting the resistors here to 50 ohm, then he would have the chance to diagnose cancer. While when he was setting this to 55 ohm, then he would be able to diagnose syphilis. So he found a system where the value, the physical value of the resistors here measured in ohm, would correspond to the actual disease. So he started up to drawing now or creating lists, and I just want to paint here the physical symbol for ohm. It's this omega symbol, Greek letter for ohm. So he came up with sheets where he no longer had um, the areas on the abdomen, but where he had the resistor values for the various diseases and for various organs even. And this is actually up till today. We use these kind of lists. If you are working with the classical Copen devices, you know what we call rate books. And we still come up with these figures here. For example, liver is 48, kidney 23. These are probably the original Abraham's figures that he found, because we have also cancer 50. But as you can see here on that list, we have canceled the physical value ohm, because we found that the rates, and we call them now just rate and not resistor value anymore, because the rates have actually nothing particular to do with the physical value of the resistor. The rates rather describe, and this is a chart I showed you already in the first webinar of this series. This is a chart. The rates rather describe an item like liver or kidney on the information or in the information field. It's rather a description for a value on this information level here, on this morphogenetic field, in this info field, which we said is time and space transcendent. So there is no time nor space. Remember, that's also the reason why distant broadcasting works, because we are here on that information level. And remember, we said every person, every animal has a blueprint on that morphogenetic field. And through morphogenetic resonance, the blueprint is corresponding here with the actual physical body, and is exchanging information and giving the information to the body so that this can actually heal if there is a problem. So, so because we are the electrical value of a resistor would be down here in the electric energy level. So that's where the ohm is. But as we're up here, we cancel the ohm. We just say liver has the rate, liver has the rate, sorry, 48, kidney has the rate 23, and so forth. And if we're looking at this chart here again, we can also see the difference between actual frequencies and rates, because frequencies are down here. There is the electric currency that we feed into our Tesla coil, and that currency has actual frequency. Remember, if a periodic system repeats once a second, we say this has a frequency of 1 hertz. If it repeats twice a second, it says 2 hertz. If it's 20 times per second, 20 hertz, 1,000 times, 1,000 hertz or 1 kilohertz, and so forth. So the frequency actually is something, again, down here on the energetic, on the material energetic level, which is bound to time and space. And as we are working here in the info field, we don't use the term frequency, because up here we only have rates that are working. We are not using frequencies. And if you're working with a zapper or with a Rive device, you are actually working with currency, with currency that's changing over time. So that's why it has a frequency. And so you have a direct approach here on that physical, energetical level to the patient, while we actually have the approach over the information field to have take an influence on the biological system. So that's the difference between frequency, direct physical approach, to the rate system that we use that has an approach or has an access to the biological system via the info field. Okay, I hope that will make that terminology a bit clearer. So the next thing we want to look at is how can you actually put your own rates into the database. So I switch back to my demo system. One second. So now you can see again my software, and we have here two, I switch off the preview here now. We have actually two icons which are important when we want to add stuff to the database. That's one point is here, new category. Sorry, I took the wrong pencil. One point is here, the new category, and the other one is new rate. So as I said before, we want to put our own rates always in the own rate section. So and if you want to put in your own rates, let's say, for example, you want to scan in all the Guna remedies or let's take Guna as an example. You first select here own rates in the database, and then you click here on new category. And you could, for example, put in here now Guna rates. And as you can see, everything else is gray. You could put in some notes here, contains the remedies from Guna. So, and you will see here is now a new category, which is actually called Guna rates as we named it. And now under this category, I can put in now either a new subcategory, for example, here, remedies for kidney, just as an example. And now I start putting in rates. And if I want to put in a rate, I've got two options. I can either use what we call isopsephere. So I say, for example, Guna kidney remedy 1. And I use isopsephere, which means I click on that gear wheel, and the software will create a rate which in the information field corresponds to the Guna kidney remedy 01. So I can use either that system, which is especially helpful if I don't have access to Guna remedies now, or if I want to put, for example, in rates from viruses, which are very difficult to get hold on anyway, if you don't know somebody who works in a special laboratory. And even then, of course, it's difficult to really get hands on a virus sample or a bacterial sample or a mold sample even. So you can use this isopsephere to put in items which are highly contaminating, like viruses, bacteria, or which are difficult to get hold on, like eventually remedies, or even allopathic remedies, which are difficult to get or expensive to get only through the pharmacy. So, and if I click OK here, I have that remedy in my database. The other option that I have is I could actually scan in the bottle. And to do so, I would actually need a bottle of these Guna remedies and put it into the input cup of the Mars 3 or in the input well of the scope Q. And I click again here on the category where I want the rate to go into, click on new rate and put in here, for example, Guna kidney remedy 02. And if I want to remember that it has been a scan, I can put in here scan. And this time I just click on the Thunderbolt, which will give me a selection whether I want to scan from the input cup, from the hand applicators. That's, for example, usual if I want to use the sample of the actual patient as a kind of autonosode of a yeah self treatment, if you like. Or I can use other, which means auxiliary plugin, which means if you, for example, use our large plate and you have a larger quantity you want to scan in, you can use that. This is also helpful. Let's go back to the input cup. If you want to scan in urine, stool, sputum, salvia, whatever, tears, whatever you want to use from the body to create individual homeopathic remedy that can also be scanned in like that. However, I put either the remedy or the biological substance in the input cup and click OK here, and that will actually scan in that substance into the database. And you can see if you do so, it's then here, it says scanned remedy, and I can just by clicking OK, store that on the database. I want to do another example just to repeat that. I can, for example, put in Guna kidney 03 and again click here, for example, on isopsophia. The rate is generated and I click OK. Oh, and you can see now I've done a mistake because now the system has put that Guna kidney 03 under the 02, but I want to have it, of course, under the subcategory. So I can just drag and drop it, click with the mouse, hold the mouse down and release the mouse when moved up to the category. Then it's actually moved where it's supposed to be. So how does it technically work to actually scan in a RAID? I just want to briefly cover that. Remember, we have under our input and output cup, we have these Tesla coils, and the Tesla coils are actually bifilar wound coils, and that capture the information field from the substance that you put under the or in the input cup. And they actually capture the information, convert them into a electrical signal, which is actually more or less noise. And so we can then digitalize that signal and store it in the database. So here's a small chart to explain that procedure. We have a remedy or any substance that we put on the coil. The coil actually creates a signal that we can run through an analog digital converter. And we have a string of numbers coming out of the analog digital converter, and that string of numbers we can store in our database. And if we want to read the rate out back, either on globules or for distant treatment, we actually recall that rate, that digital information that we stored in the database, send it back to the coil, and the coil will again create or recreate the information that we have saved in the database. So, and will create a homeopathic type remedy. It's of course not a homeopathic remedy, and you should by no means label that that globules that you've created or that drops that you've created with a homeopathic term. You should just put on the date when you've created it and eventually the name of the client. But please don't label it with the actual homeopathic remedy or information you put on there, and do also not label it with the indications you have created it for. Just put on the name of the client and put the date. That will make sure that you will not get into any legal trouble that somebody says you handed out homeopathic remedies or you wrong labeled something or so, or disclaimed something or whatever. So I think this is very, very important. So, and basically compared to the classical way how homeopathic remedies are created, we just use our MAS 3 to create this kind of information that we use for balancing the organism, be it human, animal, or plant. Next, we want to look into it is are the templates, because the templates are the actual items that we use when it comes to testing. So let's go back to our database. Sorry. Yeah, the templates. If we go to a test wizard, let me just briefly, yeah, that's something. If you exit the database, it always does a reconfiguration or a restructuring of the database. We did that for security purpose. We sometimes had it when people are scanning in or building in large amount of data into the database, and then exit the database, that it kind of struggled and couldn't recalibrate properly. So we put that in now as a standard that the database reorganizes whenever you have done a change to the database and you exit the database module. It reorganizes the whole database to make sure next time you enter it, it builds up completely and perfectly. So, and when we go to the test wizard, remember, we will actually have access here to what we call the templates. You don't have direct access to the database. You always have only access to the templates. And these templates are defined also in the database section if you go here to the templates icon. So this here is the template icon. And if I click on there, I can see it opens the template view, and you can see on the left side we have again the full database, and on the right side we have the templates. And if I click on the drop down here, you see again all the templates you have also available in the test wizard. And I can now, of course, create a new template. Let's say, for example, we'll stick with the sample or with the example of the Guna remedies. I want to create a new template. Again, in the templates, like in the database itself, we have put in numbers as kind of a sorting aid, so that the templates are not only by A to Z, but they're sorted in a appropriate manner. And so you can see all the templates we put in here, and with 10 with the teeth. So I could put in here, for example, a new template, which I call now 11 Guna remedies. And in order to make the Guna remedies that we put in our database available for testing, I would need to add them to a template. So I got here the Guna rates. I just click here in the middle on this arrow to add them to the template. So I click on here, and this comes up with a screen where I can select the maximum number of items. Remember, we did that last time when we were talking through the test wizard. We had these numbers in brackets where I told you you can kind of zoom in or out of a category, and we define that number that appears in the test wizard. We define that here when defining a template. So I put in here now, just as an example, I put in 4 because we only have a total of 4 rates here. If I choose a different category just for the sake of an example, let's say, for example, I go to therapeutics, go to homeopathy, and go to single remedies A to Z. We would, for example, have here the big number of 1,816 rates, homeopathic remedies. I could say, for example, I only want to have the 7 most important ones. So that's how I can define the number in brackets here while setting up a template. For now, we just keep it with this Guna remedies. And if I click here, close, and go back to the test wizard, and I have now here available, if I go down to 11, our Guna remedies template with these 4 rates that we have selected. Okay. Let's go back to the database, to the template section, and let's go back to our template. If I say, well, I'm not happy with with the name I gave to the template anymore, I could rename the template and call it not only Guna remedies, but let's say remedy test. And I could now, of course, add, for example, more remedies to it. For example, as I said before, I could add all the homeopathic remedies. Instead, I want to have the 7 most important homeopathic remedies. I could add the Schüssler salts. I could say I want to have the 5 most important Schüssler salts. And I could, for example, put in the Aurasoma, and let's say the 7 most important Aurasoma, and so forth. I could also put a description in here. Could, for example, say this template is designed to test for the most important for that patient at that moment in time, just as an example. So that's how you can add your own templates, or also, of course, edit existent templates. You could also even easily call up one of our templates that we have here, for example, the Psychology Complete. And if you feel you want to add something to it, for example, some psychology treatment remedies or so forth, then you can just do so by adding stuff here to that psychology template. I could, for example, now put in the Guna rates here. If I think they're good for the treatment of psychological issues, I can just put it in here. And when I will call up this template the next time in the test wizard, I will also have my own rates here and my Guna rates here in the template that we have provided with the system. Please be careful with deleting any templates, which is remove template, because you can also delete our templates that we have put in here. So please be careful. There will be, if you click remove template, there will be, of course, a warning. Are you sure you want to delete this template? And please make sure you don't delete our system templates, because there is no, other than this message, there's no further security means. You have also seen here, eventually you can also import and export templates. That is for you to actually exchange your own rates that you might have put into the system with your colleagues. And that's very easy. You just click here, export template. And I cannot do it because I run the system here in a demo mode. But if you have your hardware connected to it, you can export the template and you will get in the data file of our software. So if you go to your folder where this software is installed, under export, you will have then here two files, an SC1 file and an SC2 file, and you can combine them both together into a zip file. And that zip file you can then actually send to your colleague, and he can put it into his import folder. So let's just do that as an example. We'll copy that file here and put it into the import folder. And if I go now back to my software and go back to the template section and go to import template, there will be a security question again. If I'm sure I want to import these rates, I say yes. It automatically goes to the import folder and I can select this zip file. I do not have to unzip it. And I can select that zip file and it will import the rates into my database. Notice that once you have the SC1, SC2 file in the import folder, it will only show here the SC1 file. It won't show the SC2 files also, although both are here in that folder, as you can see here. It will only show the SC1 file, so you can choose either the zip file, or if you have uncompressed the files, you select the SC1 file for import. Should you have any issues with that, just feel free to reach out for our technical support. He can also help you on that issue. Yeah, so that's about templates. Of course, we've covered remove templates, we covered rename. You could also copy a template if you want to use, for example, one of our existing templates and just want to add a little flavor to it, a little of your personal flavor. You can copy one of our templates and then rename it to whatever you want to give it a name, and then add your own items you want to add to it. So that's just very easy. I just show it to you. Let's say you want to, for example, let's say add further stuff, or you like let's take a little bit more complex. You like eventually the drainage and toxification, but you want to add something to it. You can just simply copy that template. You can see it's got here now a /1 to it, and then you rename it. Just call it eventually custom edit, and then you could add other stuff. I stretch a little bit out on my Guna remedies now. So I could eventually also add that here to that drainage and toxification template. Next thing I want to talk about is the clipboard, because that's some kind of, I think, very important little tool which a lot of people are not aware of. That's this little bugger here, the clipboard. If I click on it, it will open up the clipboard. So I got still stuff in here. It will open up here a clear clipboard view. And the clipboard is a little bit like the Windows clipboard, or like the Windows clipboard. You know, you can copy stuff on and paste it into on a different in a different app or a different different application or into an email or whatever. So and the same is true for this for the clipboard that we have here. And I said before in our therapeutics in the homeopathy section, we have here single remedies, indications. So let's say you have, for example, a patient suffering from high blood pressure, and you want to know which is the best homeopathic remedy to treat the high blood pressure, but you probably don't know so well about homeopathy. So you could go into that section here, and by double clicking on the various items, adding them to a clipboard. Once I've done that, I could just now click close, go to the test wizard, go to the main test, and put in here for example, high blood pressure in the morning, just as an example. And I go now to the tab clipboards here. That's this tab here. And I select from the drop down the current clipboard. And if I open this, you can see there are all these high blood pressure remedies. I'll take all the rates down into the lower area, this one here. I click here to take copy all the rates down, and I click on tool. I first need to expand the lower tree, and then I click on the Viber generator, and that will give me here a value for every single homeopathic remedies, how well it is for this particular patient to treat the high blood pressure. And the rest of the procedure is, I think, pretty clear. I gonna want to trigger to 70 to keep only the one in here that are necessary, that have a really good rating. And I can then do the start a potency test and get the potency tested on that. We've done that all in the last webinar. So this is just a brief recap. If you want to know how to do that, please refer to the last webinar. But that's just one of the things you could do with the clipboard. Let's go back here, clear the clipboard, just here click clear clipboard. The next thing is you eventually want to put stuff together. You want to keep, like, for example, we can create a new clipboard, which we call, for example, high blood pressure clipboard. So you want to eventually put back on all these homeopathic remedies. Blood pressure high, here they are. Let's just quickly put them back on here. Okay. I just do double click to put them on, back on again here. But you eventually want to put in here from the organs, you want to put in cardiovascular system, you want to put in, let's say, for example, the lymphatic vessels of the heart. You want to put the ventricle of the heart. Or the heart itself as an organ. So, and you eventually want to put in, we have here diseases and symptoms. Let's check whether we got a blood pressure rate here. Blood pressure high. So you want to put a clipboard together where you, I did Mercurius Solibus now twice here, I see, so I can delete just this rate by selecting this rate and click delete rate, so that deletes a single item. So now we have created a high blood pressure clipboard, and whenever, again, go back to the test wizard, go to the clipboard, I could recall now here this high blood pressure clipboard. Back to the clipboard. Back to our high blood pressure clipboard. Again, we have the option here to rename the clipboard. That's the same function like we have in the templates that we just did. You can, of course, delete a clipboard. I have here, for example, a cold clipboard. I don't want to use that anymore. I can delete that clipboard. Again, there comes the message, warning message. Do I really want to delete that? Yes, I want. And let's go back to our high blood pressure clipboard. Another thing is, for example, that might be helpful if you, especially if you want to build up more of these clipboards. We have some customers that build up clipboards for everything and you want to save them eventually as a RAID, because some important point here is that the clipboards as such cannot be exported or imported from the database. So you first have to save them as a RAID. And here comes the question, do you want to save them as a projection in the database? I say yes. And I have to give a name. So you can see under projections here now, we have high blood pressure. So another beauty, if I do that, I can now eventually even delete that clipboard here. And if I have it under the projections here and I drag and drop it back to the clipboard, you can see it inserts the original rates into the clipboard. Another function of the clipboard, which I think is quite handy, imagine you eventually want to have quick access to a certain homeopathic remedy. Just back one step. You can see it has added now the rates under the current clipboard, and yeah, so you see the content of these rates. Now back to what I just wanted to tell you. I clear the current clipboard. If you want to make, for example, one homeopathic remedy very quickly, let's go back here to homeopathic remedies, single remedies, A to Z. Let's say, for example, you want to create lachesis in a C30. So I'm searching here for lachesis, double click, it's on there, and I want to create a C30 or 30C as you say. I put in here C30 in the clipboard and click the return button on the clipboard, so you can see it saves here the potency with the actual remedy. And if I go here to projection, it will immediately load the remedy, the lachesis C30, into the projection area of the software, and you can create either a globules or drops, or you can print it also on card, or you can even do a distant broadcasting with it. Yeah, so that was basically more or less all I wanted to talk to you about today on the database. Let me just go back to my chart here. So we covered templates, we covered clipboards. Yeah, so next step, register on our website for our newsletter, copen.com. And of course, hopefully you want to enroll also for our next webinar in 2 weeks time, also on our website for the part 4 of this series, which will cover everything about the color tuning system. So for today, are there any questions? Oh yeah, sorry, I closed the chat. Sorry, I didn't keep it open during the webinar. There was an asked question to make the screen large of the mouse. I'm really sorry that I didn't read that before. I hope you could get what I done though, and could follow the steps on the screen. If not, we will, or we have recorded this webinar tonight, and we will put that up on our website. Just want to eventually point out that some of you had issues with watching the recordings. You just log back into our website where you have actually purchased or enrolled for the webinars, and in your account you will find all the recordings of the past webinars, so you can watch them. And if you have missed one and this is the first webinar you're watching, just feel free to purchase the other ones. Well, I'm saying purchase now because you have to run through the purchase procedure in order to get the links. But of course, they cost nothing, so you don't have to pay anything for them. But you have to still go through the purchasing process on our website. So one question I've got here is, when copying a homeopathic remedy, will it also copen the potency of that remedy, or is it just copying the substance and a potency needs to be assigned later or separately? Very good question. Actually, it will be put in the database with the actual potency that the remedy has. However, if you later on add a potency either in the clipboard, like I've shown to you, or you test for a potency in the potency test, that original potency you've stored the remedy will be overwritten. So to your answer to your question, yes, it will save the actual potency of that remedy. So if you save a D3, X3 or a C30 or whatever, it will actually be stored in that potency. But if you create a different potency with the system, either through the potency test or either in the clipboard, like I've shown you before, you will override the stored or the scanned potency information. Hope that's clear. I know it sounds a bit strange, but it really works like that. Second question is, so if a remedy is made up of a combination of remedies in different potencies, does it copy each remedy with its potency, or is it just the substance without potency? Yes, if a remedy is made up with a combination of different potencies, it does actually copy each remedy with its potency. However, now eventually it gets a bit complicated now, because if you have such a formula or such a combination of remedies and you use a potency in the system, then it will actually be like if you take that combination of, oh, sorry, I got my video switched off. If you have a combination of remedies put into the system and then you select a potency, it is actually like if you would take that combination of homeopathic remedies and potentize that to a C30. Hale is doing that in some of their remedies. You can read that when you read the contents, the ingredients of the remedy. You can read that it has various different remedies and potencies, and then that combination in a total is again then potentized to a certain potency. So that's what happens if you scan in a combination of remedies with different potencies and add a potency to that in our system. The question goes on. For example, a remedy that contains arnica 12C and rustox X6 and ruta 1X and aconite 30C. Yeah, it actually copies these 4 different remedies with these 4 different potencies. Hope that answers that question. Today there is a Anna, no, you're not bothering. Anna's just said, no, you're not bothering us. We're absolutely happy to help you whenever we can, and hope we can help you with what we ever come up with. So yeah, that's today for the questions, I guess. Thank you so much for joining me on this webinar, and I hope, of course, to see you again in 2 weeks' time when we talk about the color tuning. And yeah, I wish you a pleasant day, a good night, stay well, and hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time in the next webinar. Thank you and bye-bye.